time for Space Chat with Brad Tucker, astrophysicist and cosmologist at ANU. Thanks very much for your time as ever, Brad. Look, let's begin with Russia and China. They're going to work on building a moon space station in competition with NASA. Do they need more space? Is it just a question of them not wanting to cooperate with the US? What's behind this?
So yeah, when we look at the U.S. and China in space, there has been some competition now. In fact, right now with the International Space Station, the one going around the Earth, China is locked out of it because of the U.S. policies with working with Chinese scientists and government organizations. So China was always going to be locked out of NASA's what project is called Gateway, their space station, the one Australia is participating in. So really the question was going to be, is China going to try and do their own thing around the moon, which the answer was kind of clear they were going to try. But really what was Russia going to do? Because the International Space Station now is built essentially equally with the US and Russia. So was Russia going to participate in a bigger, slightly American-led one and kind of co-lead it with America, or do it with China? And so obviously now choosing the latter, it will boost that capability and clearly be a clear rival to the NASA-led program. Right.
I mean, we're used to more cooperation at space. It seems to be the one thing that brings countries together that don't normally agree. Up in these moon stations, will they cooperate more than they do on the ground? I mean, if one of them runs out of milk, can they send over a carton? It's probably not a good example of how they'd share things, but
sugar is probably the better example, right?
Sugar? All right.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good example. That's a good question, because I think that we will see more cooperation, as you said, than we do here on Earth. In fact, even in the 70s, peak Cold War, the Apollo-Soyuz mission, so the U.S. and Russia did joint exercises in space together. So I think we will see more cooperation. I think what really people are trying to make sure doesn't happen is that cooperation does lead, and not necessarily more of a militaristic or arms race buildup, which we potentially see hints of. And I think the other thing for the American side is if the U.S. pushes their deadlines back, and instead of aiming to be there 2024, but that timeline slips, it may actually mean China and Russia beats the U.S. back to the moon. And obviously there will be political consequences there. So I think everyone's trying to kind of suss out what this means. People do want to work together, and I think we will see cooperation. It's just how much of that is government-led and how much is really scientific-led.
Now, the constant search for life, a nearby what's described as hot planet, could give us some clues as to where it might exist.
Yeah, so this is a planet we're talking about is over 400 degrees Celsius. Now, the exciting thing about Gliese 486b is it's actually really nearby. It's only about 26 light years away, which, look, again, that's far for everything else. But, this would be like 5 houses down on your street. So it's a close neighbor of ours. And because it's a close neighbor, you can study it in more detail. And because it's so different to Earth, we have the ability to measure and understand its atmosphere, what it's like, and therefore, if it has an atmosphere, what properties it could have to support life. And now, obviously, any life that may be there, again, we haven't found it yet, would be very different than the one here on Earth. So it's really a great study and example of how extreme and how different an environment can be to have life.
Now, when we look at the night sky and the moon, it looks very peaceful up there, Brad, but there's a lot going on with meteorites.
Yeah, the moon has constantly been bombarded by meteorites, and now we see evidence of these craters on its surface. But a recent study led by some undergraduates actually in the U.S. has found that when these meteorites slam into the moon, they break up dirt, and that dirt falls off into space. And it leaves this kind of yellow comet tail like that you're seeing on your screen here. In fact, it's sodium, like sodium and that would go into your salt. And as the sodium blows through space, the sun actually blows it at the Earth. So every 29 days, almost every month, the moon gives us a sodium or salty shower on the Earth that the Earth also then blows into space. Now, why is this important? If we're looking for signs of elements and signatures of potential life or other chemicals in these planets, if we have extra sodium in our own skies, it can be a big contamination. So to realize that the moon is kind of polluting our skies will actually aid us in better understanding what we find when we look into space at other objects.
Just finally, I'm very encouraged by this story because I can never fix this leak in our shower. We keep getting all these people back. The space station, well, they've managed to, but it took them a while.
Look, yeah, you're not the only one that takes a little bit of work to get the leak to fix. So, yeah, we talked about this last year when they found this leak on the space station. And again, it was a tiny leak, but obviously something that you want to solve. Now, eventually they solved the module, and it was in one of the oldest compartments of the space station. And now 2 Russian astronauts have been on a mission to use some sealant and some work to actually seal that hole now finally on the outside. Now, this will obviously prevent further wear and tear and fatigue of that module again, because it was one of the first built, but obviously limit any danger that leak presents to the astronauts on board. So a great solution they finally got there, but yes, it definitely sometimes takes longer than you'd like.
It does. I might get NASA onto our shower. Brad Tucker, until then, talk next week. Thank you.
Take care.